Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. Joining us tonight, we have Cameron Cowperthwaite, who's recently appeared in Dahmer, which is on Netflix, and American Horror Stories. Cameron, thank you so much for being our guest tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for taking the time to have me on the show.
It's a pleasure, man. We have some stuff to talk about, and let's get started
I
with
know it's been
let's
a good year so far.
yeah, let's start with Dahmer. Okay, you play Stephen Hicks.
Yes.
Wow. Jeffrey Dahmer's first victim back in
hmm
1978. For people that have seen the show and they're trying to place Cameron because he looked a little bit different, put him back in the 70s. Longer
Yeah, the
hair.
hair.
Yeah,
That was my real hair, by the way.
it was.
It was my real hair. I feel great that it's like immortalized on screen because
that
I once I cut it, I was like, I'm never gonna do this again. So I'm glad that there's a moment of it on there.
that is so cool. I would have bet money that was like add-ons. But anyway, like we said, Stephen Hicks was Jeffrey Dahmer's first murder victim.
hmm
It's the when fantasy for him turned into reality.
Yeah.
Did Netflix provide consultants on the set for you to sort of guide you through, or were you guys left on your own to do your own research?
There's so much in the script. A lot of like you can tell that there's so much that has gone into the writing of it that allows you to get enough context clues to kind of do it on your own. And I think, Netflix was always there. So were the directors and the producers and the writers as a resource. But part of my favorite thing about acting is doing the research. So I always seem to come to set with the answers I need for the most part. I actually did enough of a deep dive. It was kind of spooky. I had done research on Steven and tried to place where he was from and do as much research as I could. And I actually found a grainy VHS recording of the Pegasus concert he was on his way to
Wow.
before he encountered Jeff. I basically got to watch the show he never got to see. It was spooky and
That is
surreal, but it was very
spooky.
helpful. Yeah.
Wow. Now, how did you approach the role knowing that it was such a pivotal moment for Jeffrey Dahmer? Like I said, reality had, fantasy had turned into reality
Yeah.
for him. You were the one, Steven was the one that made him cross that line that there was never coming back from. How did you
No, and
approach it?
I did my best to be as prepared as possible in the sense that I didn't know, what was going to happen. I think sometimes you can have an idea of what these scenes are going to be like, but once you get there, and I was lucky that I had worked with Evan before on American Horror Story, so
Hmm.
I kind of knew the way he worked, and because it's, such a pivotal moment for Jeff, you're kind of letting him take the lead and just being prepared and present enough to just follow where he goes. And we actually did a lot of improv and went off script a lot. And we shot that scene over like 2 days, day and a half maybe. So there was a lot that didn't make it in the final product, but so much was explored on the day. And I kind of just did my best to just let go. I
Hmm.
think I at first I wanted it to be this thing that I had prepared in my mind. And then after the first take with Evan, who was just brilliant, I was like, you know what? Fuck all that. I'm going to go over here now. So I just kind of let it be what it was and existed on the day.
Well, it worked. Now, Evan Peters, you said it, did such an amazing job as Dahmer.
Yeah.
Uh, but when you guys were in the middle of your scenes shooting it,
hmm
he's Jeffrey Dahmer, you're Stephen Hicks. What were you feeling in the middle of those shoots?
It was the most intense day I think I've ever had on a set.
Wow.
Like everybody knew, I think, the fact that this was all true, that, these scenes are heavy normally, but I think everybody was aware that because this is so true and so horrible, there's like an extra weight to it. So everyone was just dialed to 11. And it was hard, because Evan's a friend, and he's putting himself through it to get the scene and the energy right that he feels was needed for the performance, and I'm trying to do the same thing. And It's heavy, man.
I
Like
can,
you shoot all this stuff and then you go to lunch and you're just like, so
yeah. What did
what's
just
your
happen?
weekend like?
What
Yeah,
just happened?
it's hard to wrap your mind around it. Sometimes I even in talking about it, I have so many moments of being like, man, I watched the episode. I was like, I don't remember that. Like you almost like black it out or it happens
Yeah,
too quickly. But the energy was, it's exactly what everybody saw on the show. Like I remember feeling that emotion on the day and then watching the show. It was just as sickening as it felt when
yeah.
we were filming it. It was,
Now, did you guys feel, both you and Evan, feel just a little bit of responsibility to get it right? You know what I mean? Not,
yeah.
for, not, the story is called Dahmer, but, it's the victims, For the victims, their families,
Hmm.
even for Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, just to get it as accurately as you possibly can. Did you feel that responsibility?
Yeah, I think everybody did, because the Ryan had done such a great job of preserving the point of view and making sure that they weren't glorifying a serial killer who had done all these horrible things, but really just kind of present the the story from a place of, in watching it and even in doing it, I felt like I spent a lot of time wondering about the lives these people would have had they not met Jeff.
Yeah.
There's this like perpetual thought that kept coming up for me of like what the future would have been like, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that really does lend itself to the performance and making sure that you're deliberate in trying to preserve a personality that feels so alive, because they were in their own
Yeah.
individual way. Everybody had their own dream and path, and it was taken away. And I think that knowing that, you do your best to try to just bring as much as you can and as much heart as you can, because your heart breaks for the people that were involved.
Now, that struggle scene between you and Evan, this was his first kill. Uh, did Evan try to, because serial killer, this is his first time, from what we know about serial killers, watching true crime documentaries or whatnot, they refine their whatever as they go along.
Yeah.
Did he try to capture, like, he didn't know what he was doing the first time
Yeah, they
around?
did. And it was interesting on the day because we had rehearsed it and there was actually no rehearsal. The struggle wasn't written into the script. And on the day, I think it just came over both of us as we were filming that I wouldn't, like, you just, as a human being, when you put yourself in that situation, I think I didn't plan to innately fight back, but when he comes over, your
Mm-hmm.
instinct, that animal instinct,
Yeah.
like, is to claw and with every fiber of your being try to get away.
Yeah.
And the director was so brilliant because he had set up these shots a different way, and when he saw what Evan and I were doing and kind of coming up with on the spot, he completely flipped the way he started to film the scene and started lopping some stuff off handheld and was like kind of adapting in the moment as we were adapting in the moment, which I just remember being like, holy shit, these people are so talented. you know?
So it was you guys the whole way. There were no stunt people involved.
Yeah, just us.
Okay.
I was very like, I was very adamant about doing my own stunts because I wanted everything to be captured in frame that could be captured in frame. And I felt like it was important to the story to be able to kind of feel these things, especially in the performance of it. And they let me do it. Thank God.
Now, after you were done and you left the set, did you
Hmm.
experience any emotions that you were not counting on, you weren't expecting to happen after you were like you left the set? Like,
Yeah, I think you just kind of carry that like ugliness with you a little bit.
mm-hmm,
I do my best, knowing how dark this stuff is, to give myself an out as an actor, whether it's a comedy special or a song or something that can pull you from the threads of, essentially emotional depression or emotional release.
yeah,
And you definitely feel that. I only shot like 5 days, I think like maybe yeah, like a week, 5 days, and it felt like I had been there for like a year
Yeah.
because it's so heavy.
Yeah, I was surprised when the show first premiered, and I looked at the amount of episodes. I'm like, wow, 10 episodes. I'm
I
like,
know.
yeah,
I texted Evan the other day, and I was like, "Hey, are you okay? You know, just to check in. You know, the because I thought the same thing. I literally was like, oh my god, this is so many hours and hours and hours and
uh
hours and
huh.
weeks and months of being in this headspace, and you know, he seems to be good. He's got a good outlet for everything, and it's really mesmerizing to watch. He's truly a pro.
Before we get on to American Horror Stories, I just want to say one thing about Evan Peters. I think he deserves some kind of award recognition for this role.
I do too.
Uh,
I was like, the only time I've seen the eyes of the individual change, because we've seen like people put on weight or take off weight, you
mm-hmm,
know, or change their bodies or put on prosthetics to look like certain characters, but like their eyes are still there. You know, that
mm-hmm.
is still so and so's eyes. The only performances in my recollection, or like most recent recollection, was Heath Ledger's Joker was like gone, and then when I saw Evan in this, it's just dull.
Yeah,
Like this sad dullness that I was like, that's just not him.
yeah.
And I agree. I think like that is haunting,
And he
truly.
carried the same emotions no matter what he was doing, and
Yeah.
that's just crazy. So let's go
I
to
agree with you 100%.
American Horror Stories. Now you played
Yeah.
Charlie in the episode
Yeah.
Necro, which just finished this past season, which was season
Mm-hmm.
number 2.
Yep.
This was a return to the American Horror Story franchise for you.
It was.
You played in the Cult with
I did. Yeah.
Evan Peters, who had the leading role in that. You played
Mm-hmm.
Speedwagon, one of his
Yeah.
followers. With now, what were your feelings to return to the franchise? First off,
I elated, you know. I like that show is built solely for the fans because of the fans. Like the American Horror Story fans are one of a kind. It feels like they're almost in the zeitgeist of like Star Wars fans
yeah,
or you know, Marvel fans. Like people love that show
oh
and those
yeah,
characters and the world that's been built. So one, being in it was amazing. Two, returning to it was uh, outstanding because you're also like Ryan Murphy is so loyal and so built on people who want to be there and work really hard. So you see a lot of the same people that are jumping from show to show. So to go back on American Horror Stories, like my writer, the writer Crystal, who did such a phenomenal job with Necro, was the writer on Cult. So like I hadn't seen her in 4 years, but like you're like, oh my god,
yeah.
how are you? It's like a summer camp catch up, honestly.
Yeah, Ryan Murphy, you could tell. I mean, he has his actors that he loves working with, and he trusts, and I think that's why I mean, Dahmer was a Ryan Murphy show, and American Horror Stories, and he brought you from American Horror Story to Dahmer, Evan Peters
Yep.
over. Now, Necro was probably my favorite episode from this past season.
No
Um,
way, really?
yeah, it really,
Oh
really
man, that's
was.
awesome. I appreciate that.
Now,
Thank you.
you play Charlie. Now, when you first read through Charlie, who is a very bizarre character, we're going to talk about him more in depth. But what were your thoughts on this guy when you read the script?
Well, I mean, the moment you download the PDF and you see that the title is Necro, you're like, oh my god! Like you know, your palms are already sweating before you turn to page one because you're like, what, what is, what are they going to do? Because they're always the American Horror Story team is always pushing envelopes.
Yeah.
So I had this expectation in my mind that it was going to be what the title was going to be. And then as I read through it, I was pleasantly surprised at how character driven and how Romeo and Juliet and Shakespearean the characters were. Like it's
Hmm.
almost a really fucked up like Romeo and Juliet kind of scenario. Even down to the poetic ending.
Exactly.
Um, and I think that was invigorating. I was so excited to participate in like that version of it. that was kind of carefully curated, and there was nuance to it. And I was just very grateful to get to say these words, you know.
Now, we hear Charlie's story about being the lone survivor in a family car crash. Do you
Hmm.
think he is suffering from a severe case of survivor's guilt?
At first I did, and you know, I spent a lot of time thinking about it because American Horror Story, like a lot of the dark horror things that go on, like there's so much death involved, but death is not normally the subject.
Exactly.
And in Necro, death is the subject. The characters spend a lot of time talking about all these different rituals from different walks of life or different cultural backgrounds. And I was like, wow, we don't really have like the language that some of these other cultures have to explain or talk about death in the way that isn't like incredibly sad. And I
Yeah.
found that it was actually, at first I was like, oh, he feels bad about this. But then I just thought I think he's just curious as to which of the beliefs really exist. I feel like it's
Hmm.
almost a way of coping with loss and with grief, because it's such a weird thing to have to deal with. And I think we as a society don't really feel very comfortable talking about it. And it kind of presented itself in my life in a place where I was like, wow, it's okay to bring these things up, and it's okay to feel these things and be curious and wonder and hopeful. I actually thought that it was kind of an awe-inspiring outlook that Charlie had that kind of like hit me in the heart, you know?
Yeah, he wasn't inhibited to be, not
Yeah,
in,
exactly.
fit into normal society.
Yeah.
Now, the trick, Madison Eisman is your
Hmm.
scene partner throughout the whole
Yeah, she's
show.
fantastic.
She was fantastic, and you guys
She's
had
fantastic.
great chemistry on set.
Thank you.
The trick, though, that your character plays on Sam in the mortuary is
Hmm.
it's pretty cruel. Okay,
It is.
I know he
It
has
is.
his reasons. He wants to bring out what he thinks she's faking, which she is. She is
Hmm.
faking a normal life when she's not. She's faking it,
Normal.
basic. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. How do you rationalize what Charlie did when you were reading that scene and in your character? How did you rationalize what he did?
I I I I tried my best, because I agree with you on the page, and as a person, like I would never,
Yeah,
but like I don't think any of us would do
yeah.
that. But I tried to just go back in time, and try to make it as relatable as I could. And I thought, like, man, what drives this? And I was like, you know what? Charlie has probably never been in love before, because everybody remembers their first love and
Mm-hmm.
how fucking insane and passionate those relationships are. I mean, I went to college. I'm from Delaware, and I went to college at Syracuse University. And I was at Syracuse University for 36 hours before I dropped out of the school and enrolled myself in a college in Delaware, before telling my parents after they had just dropped me off, so that I could be closer to my girlfriend, who I didn't want to leave behind. And when you're 18, you're like, this is the most romantic thing anybody has
Mm-hmm.
ever done, and it's going to work out and be great. And we didn't make it, but
Yeah,
I made great friends along the way, and I don't regret the decision. But I do remember being like, you will do anything if
exactly.
you are that like if you are that lustful, and you don't have the maturity to have been through that type of relationship before. I think we do crazy things for love.
Absolutely. Now, Madison, again, she was phenomenal. What was it like working opposite Madison? I mean,
She she's great. I mean, she is so giving and so present and so different take to take. She's really trying things on, and that makes you want to like keep up with her. And she's just in this tennis match with you, hitting the ball back and forth, left, right, kind of making you chase after this scene. She's always such a good driver in these scenes. And I was doing my best to just keep up with her. But it was really a treat. I had been a fan of hers for a while, because we have some mutual friends, and with COVID hadn't had the opportunity to meet. So I got to walk on set and be like, I know all of your friends. They're my friends too. And it was it was kind of a good icebreaker so that we can kind of get right into the nitty gritty of it. But it was such a blessing because that sequence in the grave at the end, the sequence in the mortuary,
Oh yeah.
some of these scenes with all of this dialogue, like it's hard to do. And I was like, every day I would go home and be like, oh my God, thank God it's with Madison. Thank God.
And that ending, I mean, just it was beautiful. Like you said, it was Romeo and
Yeah, it's
Juliet.
horribly poetic.
She shoots you, pulls you into the grave, and you don't resist. You don't try to get out. You know, the dirt starts filling you guys up, and you're gonna
Yeah.
be and embraced forever. You know, supposedly,
Mm-hmm.
till the police
Yep.
find you missing, and then they dig you up. And
Yeah.
Cameron, I want to thank you.
Until the after credit sequence.
Exactly, Cameron. I want to thank you so much. This was a brilliant chat.
No, this was fantastic. I thank you again for having me on the show. I'm a
Yeah,
huge fan, and it's been an honor to be here.
absolutely. And you have a lot of stuff coming up. You're like a star that's just going to keep on rising. We're looking forward to a lot
I
of good
appreciate
stuff
that so much. You're
coming
making me
from
blush.
you. I want to thank our audience, those who are tuning in live, and those who will be watching this later on. On behalf of Cameron, Copperthwaite, and myself, stay safe and stay walking. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.